Hello, everybody. I'm a little bit behind this week. It seems like I had a crazy week, a lot going on, but I could not talk to you about writing. It is absolutely one of my favorite things to teach. And I wanted to share with you a little bit about the writing plan that I had when I was a principal at a couple of schools that I've been administrator at, because we're talking about the big picture of writing. And so I wanted to share with you some of the things that I've done as an administrator and when I was a curriculum director. So, this is kind of a plan that I did. This was actually just a couple years ago. So, just a little background, I've been a curriculum director and I also worked with as a principal and assistant principal. And so I've had to look at school wide data. And if you decide to be a literacy coach, reading specialist, you're going to look at school wide data. And so I want to show you. Um, this is when I was worked with at Camp Lejeune. It's a Marine base, and this was our school wide writing plan. And um, and I'm going to kind of skip to our data because that's kind of what we're looking at is data, right? And so this is our summative data, looking at our, and we can see here, looking at our data, this is our third, fourth, and fifth grade data. This is our levels of proficiency, and we have information about literary text, and we see third, fourth, and fifth grade, informational text, vocabulary, and written expression. And so we can see our lowest scores are in written expression. So it's definitely a problem. It's only at levels of proficiency are in the 30%. So we're like, okay, that's a problem. uh, Written expression, definitely our lowest scores. And the average scores of students by grade level met expectation at a score of 35%. So not good. And so here's 29, 29, 32. And so by subclaim, this is a Mid-Atlantic, we were at 36%. And this is all over the Department of Defense schools are in Europe, Europe South, Europe West, so you can see all over. So we can see that the Mid-Atlantic was below other districts across the world. So this was, we wanted to collect writing as a formative assessment. We wanted to give quality feedback to students, and we wanted to have documentation in our focus collaboration groups. So here's what we did as a group. Here's what our plan was for writing. And what we looked at is, and in your book, we talked about Writer's Workshop. Writer's Workshop deals with polished writing. And that is when you take kids through a writer's workshop where they write a polished piece. And usually a polished piece is an argumentative piece. It can be a argumentative piece, an informational piece, or a narrative. And that's when kids go through the writing process. But there's other kinds of writing that's really important. There's what we call readable writing, and that's like a constructed response. And that's where kids write to learn. I'm sorry, write to demonstrate learning. And kids also do what we call provisional writing. That's when they're writing to learn. Provisional writing could be when older kids are taking notes, when they're doing graphic organizers. So we write to learn all the time. When we're doing annotations, that's writing to learn. That's provisional. Any kind of a constructed response is a readable piece. That's writing to demonstrate learning. So we wanted our writing to be all of those things: provisional, writing to learn; readable, writing to demonstrate learning; and polished, that's going to be um, authentic writing where you're going through the writing process. And so, again, we have this provisional writing. Those are those brief, daily, quick writes, readable. That's what teachers do to assess if the students learned it. Those are those formative assessments. And then polished writing, where they're actually going through the writing process. And again, I'm going through this very quickly, but this was a professional development that we did all year. And so provisional writing is low stakes writing. This is when kids are, if you stopped and if you said, we're going to do a quick write, when you do provisional writing, you're not taking a grade on it. This is to when kids are writing to learn. I know for me, I'm constantly taking annotations. I'm constantly taking notes. This is all provisional, and you usually don't take any kind of grade on provisional writing. And so what we did as our plan is, we said we wanted our students to have in kinder, first and second, and third through fifth grade, we wanted all of our kids to have constructed responses, and that was how we were going to measure their writing to demonstrate learning, readable pieces, and they were also going to have polished pieces. So they were going to have informational pieces, opinion pieces, and narrative pieces. That's where they kind of go through the writing process, the polished writing. Even our pre-K teachers were going to have, they were going to develop pieces in which the developmental stages of writing were going to be assessed. And so we, of course, in pre-K, that's going to look like pictures, right? We used races as a rubric, and all of our other teachers had specific rubrics, and everyone used the same rubrics for that. And so this was kind of the plan that we had. Everybody did the exact same thing, and we had these resources here. These were grade level checklists that we used. Let me see if this worked. Nope, didn't work. So some of these things I no longer have access to because I'm no longer a principal too. So I wanted to show you this because this is an example of a school-wide plan. Everyone used the same rubrics. Everyone had the same accountability for what they were writing. So everyone in my school had a polished piece, which is they went through the writing process. And they did a narrative piece, a persuasive piece, and an informational piece. And the Common Core standards, everyone has to do that. That's a part of the Common Core standards. But we also did readable pieces, which kids are demonstrating their learning. And we also did provisional writing, where students are writing to learn. So I wanted to show you an example of what we did as a school-wide writing plan. But all school use different plans. Some schools I've seen use 6 traits writing. There's all different kinds of things. But one thing I want to emphasize to you is writing, you cannot teach kids writing by buying a program. How you can improve writing in your school is by teaching teachers how to teach writing, not by buying a program. When I was a curriculum director, I'd have principals say, what program can I use? There is no program. What you have to do is teach teachers how to be writing teachers. So you can notice what I showed you was not a writing program. It was a way that we taught teachers how to be writing teachers. So that's why I wanted to show you what we used. So this week you're going to be thinking about, what are you going to do if you had this data and you're looking at this? What are you going to do to try to think about, in your case, this particular group of students? Now, what you're going to do is a little bit more diagnostic. And of course, each teacher when they looked at their group of kids, and that's what I didn't say more specifically, um, let's say that um, every time we did a specific piece, so let's say the teachers did a persuasive piece. After we did our persuasive writing, we would meet in professional learning communities. We would go over the persuasive piece, we would grade it with a rubric, and then we would decide what are the next steps based on that rubric. We would diagnose this based on the rubric, and then we would decide the next steps based on the rubric. But we all had the same rubric, and we would say, okay, here's what our next step is based on that rubric. And then we would decide the strategies that we would have to use based on that. One of the hardest things with writing is calibration of scoring. That's really hard. It took us a long time as a school to calibrate our scoring. And one thing you have to have is standardized rubrics, and you have to meet as a team and you have to calibrate those scores, because man, you have some teachers, you'll have the exact same paper, and one teacher will give them a 4, another one will give them a 2. So you have to calibrate scoring, and that takes a while. And I've heard teachers say, well, the student meant this. I know them, they meant this. So that takes a while to calibrate scoring. So that's a little bit that I have to say about writing. And sorry, I'm a little bit late on this. You guys have a good day.